I was sued by my own family after I refused to fund my sister's fake influencer dream. So I fought back, exposed their lies, cut off the money flow, and watched their perfect life collapse overnight. I'm 31, male, and this mess started when I was about 12. I grew up in suburban Phoenix in a middle-class family that looked normal from the outside but was completely dysfunctional behind closed doors. This is about family favoritism, entitlement, and what happens when spoiled brats try to lawyer their way into other people's success. We lived in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but respectable. Dad, Robert, made $50,000 a year fixing Toyotas. Mom, Patricia, did part-time bookkeeping for $20,000. Then there's my sister Brittany, 6 years younger and the undisputed golden child of our family. From day one, Brittany could literally break something expensive, and my parents would blame me for not watching her carefully enough. She was Daddy's little princess, while I was just the responsible kid who took out the trash and kept his mouth shut. When I was 12, Brittany started dance and pageants. The money they dropped was insane. $300 costumes worn once, $500 pageant dresses for competitions she rarely placed in, $75 per hour coaches, $400 photo shoots every few months. We're talking thousands monthly on this spoiled brat. The pageant circuit was like a cult. Brittany absorbed the toxic environment and started acting already famous, practicing her interview walk around the house and demanding special meals because pageant girls have to watch their figure. Me? I asked for a $20 video game and got lectured about being grateful and money not growing on trees. By 13, our room situation said everything. Brittany had custom princess pink furniture, a giant flat screen with every streaming service, and a walk-in closet full of designer clothes. My room had a squeaky Walmart twin bed, a broken second-hand dresser, and garage sale everything. The breaking point came at 14. I wanted to join the wrestling team, $150 for gear and fees. Dad looked at me like I'd asked for a sports car. Jake, we can't afford that. Money's tight with Brittany's competitions. That same week, they spent $800 on her new dance outfit because the old one was last season. That's when I realized I was invisible unless they needed someone to blame. So I made my own way. I started cutting lawns for $20 to $30 each and got 8 regular customers. I found an old guy who needed handyman help around his rental properties. He taught me construction, plumbing, electrical, real skills that would actually matter. This neighbor became the dad I never had, paying me $12 an hour while explaining business, saving money, and building something real. Most kids your age worry about video games, he'd say while we installed flooring. You're learning to build a future. Meanwhile, Princess Brittany got worse. One competition she placed 3rd out of 12 and had a complete meltdown about the judges not understanding her vision and her costume not being sparkly enough. My parents spent the drive home planning what they'd buy to boost her confidence. When I turned 16, I'd saved enough for a beat-up F-150, $3,500 cash, plus insurance and gas. Dad's first comment? Hope you're not planning to neglect chores now that you have wheels. No congratulations, just immediate assumption I'd become irresponsible. That same month they bought Brittany a brand new $18,000 Honda Civic for her birthday. She didn't even have her permit yet, but they wanted her to have reliable transportation. The car sat untouched for 2 months. Every slight, every dollar spent on her while ignoring my needs, it all went into my mental fuel tank. Junior year, I worked full-time for my neighbor after school and weekends. The work was brutal, drywall in cramped spaces, painting houses in Arizona summer heat, installing flooring on my knees for hours. But I loved learning real skills. He bumped me to $15 an hour and taught me the business side, estimating jobs, ordering materials, dealing with suppliers. You've got a natural head for this, Jake, he'd say while we installed cabinets. You could run your own operation someday. Despite working 25-plus hours weekly, I maintained solid B's. I'd do homework in my truck during lunch, study while eating dinner, write papers late at night covered in sawdust. Brittany, meanwhile, discovered social media and decided she was going to be an influencer. At 13, 14, she'd spend hours taking selfies, making TikTok videos with maybe 20 views, begging my parents for money for content. This girl had 200 followers but acted like the next big thing. She'd order $500 worth of clothes online, photograph them with elaborate lighting setups, then return half claiming they didn't photograph well. My parents called this entrepreneurial spirit. She developed this whole online persona posting quotes about living your best life and manifesting success while doing literally nothing except taking pictures. Her captions were filled with hashtags like #influencerlife, #blessed, #entrepreneur, when she'd never earned a single dollar. Worse was her attitude toward peasants, anyone she considered beneath her, including me. I'd come home exhausted from real work and she'd say, "Ew, Jake, you smell like poor people," or "I can't wait to move out so I don't have to see you looking like a homeless person." One time after 12 hours installing hardwood floors, barely able to walk, she wrinkled her nose. "Could you at least shower before dinner? Some of us have standards." My parents encouraged it. "Brittany's just confident," Mom would say. "She knows her worth." Senior year, I'd saved $12,000 and planned community college first, then transfer to state university, a smart, cost-effective plan that would leave me under $20,000 in debt. Brittany, now a sophomore with a 2.3 GPA, announced she wanted some expensive California art school for social media marketing. Not for education, but because it would be good for her brand. When acceptances came, I got into state university with a partial academic scholarship covering 40% of costs. My parents' reaction, "That's nice, Jake." That was it. Same week, Brittany got waitlisted and they spent $2,000 on a college consultant charging $200 per hour to edit her Instagram posts and write essays about her digital marketing experience. The final insult came at my graduation dinner. Dad dropped the bomb. "Jake, we think you should contribute $400 monthly for room and board when you're home from college. $400 a month to live in my childhood bedroom while working full-time to pay for my own education." Meanwhile, they were planning to spend $65,000 annually on Princess Brittany's college without expecting any contribution from her. I told them I'd think about it, but I was already making other plans. I went to State University with a clear plan, business degree with construction technology minor, then start my own company. College was financially brutal even with my scholarship and savings. I worked 20 hours weekly washing dishes at a campus restaurant, full-time with my neighbor, during breaks on complex renovations. No spring break trips, no party lifestyle, just work, study, repeat. While other students slept until noon, I was up at 6 a.m. for opening shifts. While they hit happy hours, I studied in the library until closing. Meanwhile, Brittany was living her best life at her overpriced art school. My parents dropped $65,000 annually on her digital media communications degree, basically Instagram studies. Every visit home, she'd brag about designer clothes for networking events, $300 brunch spreads for content creation, spring break trips to Cabo that cost more than my entire semester budget, all funded by Mom and Dad who were draining retirement savings and taking out plus loans. "My followers love seeing the authentic college experience," she'd say, showing photos of her ridiculous brunches. "Brands want someone who actually lives the lifestyle they're promoting." Her follower count had grown to maybe 2,000, mostly bought bots, with tiny sponsorship deals, $50 for sketchy teeth whitening products, $75 for protein shakes she never drank. She was spending roughly $200 for every dollar earned, but convinced herself this was building her brand. When I pointed out she spent more on coffee than she made from sponsorships, she'd roll her eyes. "Jake, you don't understand business. This is investment in my personal brand. You have to spend money to make money, right?" Spending $200 on dinner for 50 likes was definitely a solid business strategy. Junior year, I started taking small construction jobs independently, bathroom renovations, deck repairs, small additions. My neighbor let me use his tools and supplier connections in exchange for helping on bigger projects. I was making $25 to $30 an hour and learning every aspect of the business. One bathroom gut job for a young couple really opened my eyes. 3 weeks of work, they paid me $8,500. Materials and subcontractor fees cost maybe $3,000. Even after paying my neighbor for tools and advice, I cleared over $4,000 in 3 weeks. That's when I realized construction's real profit potential. My family relationship was basically non-existent. I'd come home for holidays and they'd spend the entire time discussing Brittany's career and education costs. Mom would show me Brittany's Instagram posts like gallery art. I was invisible unless they needed repairs. Garbage disposal breaks, call Jake, leaky faucet, Jake will handle it. The breaking point came Christmas of my junior year. I'd maintained a 3.6 GPA while working 25 hours weekly. Exhausted but proud, looking forward to relaxing. Christmas morning, Brittany opened thousands in presents. MacBook Pro for professional content creation, designer handbags for brand partnerships, jewelry for sponsored posts, expensive skincare for beauty collaborations, everything justified as business expenses. My gift? a $50 Home Depot gift card, and a lecture about not expecting handouts now that I was an adult. Then Brittany made the comment that changed everything. "At least Jake is finally learning a trade," she smirked, taking selfies with her haul for her Christmas unboxing post. "Someone has to be the worker bee while the rest of us become successful." Worker bee, to my face, on Christmas morning, while opening presents worth more than I made in 3 months. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something, anything. They just sat there like this was normal. That was it. I was done. I finished college with minimal family contact and became a polite stranger. My neighbor wanted to sell his business at a huge discount. We arranged a 5-year buyout deal where I'd take over all contracts and relationships. By graduation, everything was lined up. Business loan approved, licensing handled, insurance sorted, 3 major summer contracts worth over $45,000. Brittany graduated the same year with her useless degree and moved home, announcing she'd focus full-time on her influencer career while needing parental support to build her brand. At 22, she had maybe 5,000 followers, half bots, no real income besides occasional $50 sponsorship deals, an entitlement that would make royalty jealous. Me? I had a business plan and skills to execute it. Right out of college, I hit the ground running with my construction business. My neighbor had set me up perfectly. I inherited his crew of 3 experienced guys who'd been with him for years, his supplier relationships that got me contractor discounts, and a solid reputation built over 20 years. First year was brutal, 70 to 80-hour weeks learning to manage employees older and more experienced than me, dealing with difficult clients, handling payroll, taxes, insurance claims, permits. But it was my business. Every dollar I made, every relationship I built, every success was mine. When a client was happy with a finished bathroom renovation, they were praising my work. When a referral led to a bigger project, it was because of the reputation I was building. Within 6 months, I was booked 3 weeks in advance. Word of mouth in construction is everything, and my guys did quality work fast. We specialized in residential renovations, kitchens that transformed outdated spaces into modern showpieces, bathrooms that went from cramped disasters to spa-like retreats, additions that seamlessly blended with existing architecture, whole house remodels that doubled property values. Meanwhile, Princess Brittany was struggling with reality. Turns out 5,000 fake followers doesn't translate to actual income. Who could have seen that coming? She'd wake up at noon, spend 3 hours doing makeup and picking outfits for content shoots, take 500 photos to post 1 candid shot, then complain that brands weren't taking her seriously. Her biggest sponsorship deal was $200 for promoting some multi-level marketing skincare crap. Her daily routine was pathetic to watch. She'd set up elaborate photo shoots in our backyard using bed sheets as backdrops, take hundreds of photos in slightly different poses, then spend hours editing them with filters until she was barely recognizable, all for posts that got maybe 100 likes, mostly from other wannabe influencers doing follow-for-follow schemes. But instead of getting a real job or reassessing, she doubled down on delusion. She convinced my parents to fund a professional photo shoot and website redesign, $1,800, and some social media management course, $3,200, taught by someone who probably had fewer real followers than she did. "I just need to invest more in my brand," she'd say while eating cereal at 2 p.m. All successful influencers say you have to spend money to make money. It's about playing the long game. My parents somehow bought this nonsense. They were still paying her phone bill, car insurance, health insurance, plus giving her $1,200 a month in living expenses while she lived rent-free. They'd even converted the garage into a content studio with ring lights, backdrop stands, professional camera equipment, and climate control. Another $4,000 down the drain for what was essentially an elaborate playroom for a grown woman. Worst part was listening to her talk about money like she had any clue what work was. She'd see my dirty work clothes and truck and say, "When I'm successful, I'll hire people like Jake to fix my mansions. It's important to support blue-collar workers." Or she'd complain, "These companies are so cheap, they only want to pay me $100 for a post when I have almost 8,000 followers now." She'd bought another 3,000 fake followers, thinking nobody would notice the sudden spike with 0 engagement. Meanwhile, I was making in a week what she'd made all year from her career. By the end of my 2nd year in business, I was pulling in $180,000 annually and had expanded to a crew of 6 guys. I bought my first house and a 1,800 square foot ranch that I renovated myself using the skills I'd learned over the years. Nothing fancy, but it was mine and paid off in 3 years through aggressive extra payments. The renovation was my masterpiece: gutted kitchen with custom cabinets, completely redid both bathrooms with high-end fixtures, refinished all hardwood floors, updated electrical and plumbing throughout. The house went from a dated 1980s mess to a modern showcase that would have cost someone else $150,000 to achieve. I landed a contract to renovate a high-end neighborhood development. 12 custom homes, complete gut renovations for wealthy clients who wanted everything perfect. The contract was worth $850,000 over 8 months. More money than I'd ever imagined making. That's when my family's attitude started changing. Suddenly Jake wasn't just the worker bee anymore. Dad started asking about my business, wanting to know how much money I was making, suddenly interested in the construction industry. Mom would brag to her friends about her successful entrepreneur son like she'd always supported my career. And Brittany. She went from insulting my work to trying to get me to fund her schemes. "Jake, you should sponsor one of my posts," she'd say while I ate lunch covered in sawdust. "I could promote your business to my followers. It would be great cross-promotion." Her followers were mostly bots, fake accounts from overseas, and middle-aged perverts commenting fire emojis on her thirst traps. Real valuable demographic for residential construction targeting affluent homeowners. When I politely declined, she'd get pissy. "You're so selfish. I'm trying to help you grow your business, and you won't even support your own sister. Family is supposed to help family." The entitlement was unreal. This girl had never worked a real day in her life, was completely supported by her parents at 25, and thought I owed her free marketing just because we shared DNA. Things got worse when she started dating this loser named Chad, supposedly a crypto entrepreneur. Translation: unemployed guy who lost his trust fund gambling on digital coins and now lived with his parents while pretending to be a business mogul. Chad convinced her she needed to level up her brand and think bigger. They came up with a brilliant plan to start a YouTube channel about luxury lifestyle on a budget where they'd review expensive restaurants, hotels, and products. The catch? They needed funding to maintain the lifestyle they'd be reviewing. Their logic was flawless: spend my money living luxuriously, document it, become famous influencers, then pay me back from earnings. What could go wrong? Brittany asked my parents for $15,000 to launch the channel properly when they couldn't afford it. Shocking, considering they'd already blown their retirement savings on her college. So she came to me. "Jake, this is a real business opportunity," she explained with a PowerPoint presentation she'd obviously spent weeks on. "Chad and I have the whole thing planned out. We just need initial investment to cover expenses for the first 6 months. You'd basically be our angel investor." I asked to see their business plan. It was a PowerPoint with stock photos and vague promises about monetization. No market research, no realistic revenue projections, no understanding of how YouTube actually works. "We don't need all that corporate stuff," Chad said, waving my questions away. "Social media is about authenticity and vibes. You can't put vibes in a spreadsheet, right?" I told them I wasn't interested. That's when the real Brittany came out. After I turned down Brittany's ridiculous YouTube scheme, the family dynamics completely shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't the successful brother they wanted to brag about. I was the selfish jerk holding the family back. The harassment started: small, passive-aggressive comments about how some people forget where they came from, cryptic social media stories about fake people and blood being thicker than water until money gets involved. Then it escalated. She started posting subtle digs about fake family members who abandoned their loved ones after getting successful. Her dozen real followers ate it up. My parents joined the pressure campaign. Dad would call asking for business advice, but really just fishing for how much I had saved. Mom would guilt-trip me about how disappointed they were that I wasn't helping Brittany achieve her potential, comparing me to other successful siblings who lifted up their families and hinting I'd forgotten where I came from. The breaking point came at Thanksgiving dinner. I'd been working non-stop on a major whole home renovation, 12-hour days for 3 weeks straight, and was exhausted, but showed up to keep some semblance of family relationship. Brittany spent the entire meal talking about her upcoming projects and how she just needed one big break. Chad nodded along, throwing in buzzwords like synergy and viral potential while contributing nothing useful. She'd prepared a whole presentation about their YouTube idea with competitor analysis, watching other YouTubers for a few hours, and revenue projections, completely made-up numbers showing they could make $50,000 per month within 6 months with proper funding. Then she turned to me. "Jake, I've been thinking about what you said about needing a business plan. What if we made this a family business? You could be the financial backer, I'd be creative director, and we could split profits." "What profits?" I asked. You've been doing this 5 years and haven't made enough to cover your Starbucks budget. Her face went red. That's because I haven't had proper funding. Do you know how much I could be making if I had resources? Other influencers had family support or rich boyfriends. I've been doing this on my own. Brittany, you're 25 and have never had a real job. Maybe start with something realistic before planning your media empire. That's when she exploded. Realistic? You mean like getting my hands dirty doing manual labor my whole life? I have talent, Jake. Just because you're content being blue-collar nobody doesn't mean I should settle for mediocrity. The room went silent. Even Chad looked uncomfortable. Dad cleared his throat. Jake, that was uncalled for. Brittany is pursuing her passion. Her passion? Dad, you and Mom have spent over $300,000 supporting her passion and she's made maybe $2,000 total. At what point do we call this what it is? A spoiled brat playing pretend while adults pay her bills? Mom jumped in. Jake, she's your sister. We're supposed to support each other. Support goes both ways. What has she ever done to support me? She's never even acknowledged my success. Brittany was crying now, manipulative tears where she could still talk clearly between sobs. I can't believe you're attacking me. All I've ever wanted was for my family to believe in me. You got lucky with your business, but that doesn't make you better than me. Lucky? I worked 80-hour weeks for 7 years while you took selfies and spent other people's money. Belief doesn't pay bills, Brittany. Results do. That's when Chad made his fatal mistake. Dude, you need to check your privilege. Not everyone can just inherit a business and call themselves successful. Some of us have to be creative and innovative. I stood up. Inherit? I worked 80-hour weeks for 7 years to build my business. I paid my own way through college while your girlfriend racked up $250,000 in debt for a useless degree. Don't you dare talk to me about privilege. The argument devolved from there, voices raised, old grievances aired, lines crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. Dad accused me of forgetting my family now that I had money. Mom cried about me tearing the family apart over petty jealousy. It ended with me walking out and not speaking to any of them for 3 months. That's when I got the certified letter. My own family was suing me for $400,000, claiming I had unfairly benefited from family resources and owed Brittany compensation for lost opportunities caused by my refusal to provide reasonable family support. The lawsuit alleged that by not investing in Brittany's business ventures I had caused irreparable harm to her potential earnings, and that my success created an implied obligation to support her endeavors. They actually argued that because we grew up in the same household, my success was partially due to family investment and should be shared equally, never mind that I'd been supporting myself since 16 while she'd been entirely supported by family money. It was complete nonsense, but it was real. They actually filed papers in court against their own son and brother. I hired the best attorney I could find and prepared for war. The discovery process was brutal but enlightening. My lawyer, a shark who specialized in business litigation, literally laughed when she read their filing. Jake, this is one of the weakest cases I've ever seen. They have no legal basis, but we're going to destroy them anyway. During depositions, the truth about my family's finances came out. It was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had blown through their entire retirement savings funding Brittany's lifestyle. They'd taken a second mortgage on the house, $140,000. Dad had cashed out his $401K early, $80,000 in penalties and taxes. And they owed $85,000 in credit card debt across 12 cards. All for Brittany's career. The numbers were staggering. Over 8 years, they'd spent $340,000 on her college, $265,000 on living expenses, $48,000 on equipment, $12,000 travel, $8,000 photo shoots, $4,000 courses, $2,500 various schemes. Her total earnings from influencing? $3,200. That's a 99.1% loss rate.
But the best part was Brittany's deposition. My lawyer tore her apart for 3 hours. She couldn't answer basic questions about business plans, market analysis, or realistic projections, and kept falling back on you don't understand the influencer space and with proper funding anything is possible.
When asked about her work schedule, she admitted to maybe 2 to 3 hours per day on content creation, and couldn't explain what she did with the rest of her time. The transcripts read like a comedy sketch. Meanwhile, my financial records told a different story. 7 years of consistent growth, satisfied clients, repeat business, steady expansion, $380,000 in business, assets, $150,000 in personal savings, 0 debt except my business loan which was ahead of schedule, Everything documented, legitimate, and earned through actual work. The most damaging revelation, Brittany and Chad's real plan had been to use any money from me as a down payment on a house, flip it, and pocket the profit. The YouTube channel was just a cover story. Chad's deposition was a train wreck. He couldn't define investment portfolio and listed his business experience as crypto trading, lost $15,000 of his parents' money, drop shipping, made $200 in 6 months, and affiliate marketing, earned $50 total. His longest job? 3 months at a cell phone store before getting fired for poor attendance. By the time discovery wrapped up, we had them dead to rights. Frivolous lawsuit, no legal basis, clear pattern of financial irresponsibility, and evidence of attempted fraud. But my lawyer had a better idea than just winning. They've destroyed their lives trying to support Brittany's delusions. They're about to lose their house and have no retirement. What if we make them pay for wasting everyone's time? She filed a countersuit for malicious prosecution, legal fees, and damage to my business reputation, $150,000 plus attorney fees. The trial lasted 3 days and was everything I'd hoped for. My lawyer presented our case like a documentary on financial stupidity and entitled behavior. When Brittany took the stand, the judge was taking notes and trying not to laugh. When Chad testified and said his legal experience came from watching a lot of legal shows, it was over. The judge dismissed their case immediately and granted our countersuit in full. "I've been on the bench 18 years, Judge Morrison said. This is one of the most frivolous lawsuits I've ever seen. Plaintiffs have presented no legal basis and clearly filed this action in bad faith." He ordered them to pay $125,000 in damages plus all my legal fees, another $47,000. They had 30 days to pay or face asset seizure. Within 2 weeks, reality hit like a freight train. They couldn't pay $172,000. My lawyer started seizure proceedings, liens on the house, cars, Dad's tools, everything of value. The begging started. Dad tried tough guy, then broke down. Brittany went from anger to manipulation to bargaining to complete breakdown. 3 months after judgment, they defaulted. The house went to auction, Dad's truck was repossessed. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. Dad got fired when wage garnishment hit. Mom took a $12 an hour call center job. Brittany got a job at Target. Her social media career died overnight. 6 months later, Dad called sounding 20 years older. "Jake, your mother is having health problems and we can't afford her medications. I'm not asking forgiveness the remaining $140,000 debt under 4 conditions. 1. Brittany posts a public video admitting her influencer career was a failure and that she lived off family money for 8 years while producing nothing of value. 2. My parents write and sign a detailed letter acknowledging their favoritism, poor financial decisions, and responsibility for the lawsuit. 3. Zero contact with me for at least 5 years. 4. If any of them ever speaks publicly about me or contacts me, the full debt is reinstated." They agreed within hours. Brittany's confession video, no makeup, no filters, just a broken 26-year-old admitting she'd wasted years and hundreds of thousands of dollars chasing a fantasy, got more views than anything she'd ever posted. My parents' 4-page letter admitted everything. When my lawyer delivered the debt forgiveness papers, I finally felt the weight of 15 years lift off my shoulders. I was free. My business is thriving. My family can't hurt me anymore.